Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we'll be speaking to Atharva. Atharva is the co-founder of NFT Labs, and they have two verticals, Social Swag and as well as It's Mine. So Social Swag does, NFTs, which are more Bollywood centric or facing, and It's Mine, it has a sports niche. So this conversation, we kind of talked about how NFTs and Metaverse are intrinsically related and all the exciting things that these guys are building at NFT Labs as well. So I can't wait for you guys to hear this. Let's deep dive right in. Hi, Atharva. Thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to us today. How are you doing?
Hey, hi Tarusha. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well too. So, Adar, can you start off? Let's start off by telling our listeners about your journey so far in crypto and how you got into this space.
So, actually, it's not too much of a deviation for me to get into crypto from where I started because my entire career, so to say, began in technology. I started with a company called Fractal Media, which basically was the early genesis of Ola Play. अभी जो हम लोग देखते हैं ना in Ola cabs we have those taxi TV kind of entertainment devices. So we actually made that system for Ola, and that was my first company and my first exit. Post which I did a bunch of other things in between, ranging from pharmaceutical distribution to other kinds of trading and so on. But I think that there was a period of a few years in between where I was not really sure what I wanted to do next. So I just tried a bunch of things out, and crypto happened to be one of those bunch of things. But like many other people, many other people, I was just on the sidelines. I was doing trading for my own portfolio, and I also did some trades on behalf of some friends and some family members and so on. So I did not really plan on launching my own project in crypto, I think until 2020 at least. But then, like when the plan happened, it just came together quite fast.
Okay, yeah, that's how things move in crypto. They tend to move really fast. So tell us a little about what you're working on currently. You can elaborate on what It's Mine does, and you can tell our users about that.
Yeah, great. So, just to kind of set some context, we have a company called NFT Labs. And within NFT Labs, the idea is to build a suite of multiple products which will effectively leverage NFT technology in one way or the other. And the product which we are launching is called It's Mine. So It's Mine is basically ITSMYNE. And It's Mine is basically based on a very simple fundamental that currently in the NFT space now, people are buying and selling NFTs on marketplaces like OpenSea, Rarible, and so on. But these same people are engaging in all kinds of social chatter and social conversation on platforms like Discord servers, Telegram groups, WhatsApp, and so forth. So effectively, for one set of digital assets, two different types of platforms are being used, right? On one hand, we have the trading, and on one hand, we have the social chatter. So we thought that why not just combine the trading and the talking into one single product? And that is literally how the idea of It's Mine was born. And It's Mine is basically a centralized platform wherein people can buy and sell NFTs, plus they can engage in social conversation with each other, as well as with the publishers of the NFTs.
Okay, and so there is a way for these creators to actually have their community, being built there itself. Is that correct?
So that's where we are doing things a bit differently. So, a lot of times when I tell this to people, the first perception is that it's a hybrid between OpenSea and Instagram or OpenSea and Reddit. But I think It's Mine is not really that. It's Mine is more of a hybrid between NBA Top Shot and Reddit, which means that what we are doing is that we are only selling officially licensed NFTs. We will be partnering with certain creators and brands and so on. And we will only have their NFTs sold onto our platform. People can come, they can buy those NFTs, and then the secondary trading of these NFTs can happen on our own marketplace as well as any other NFT marketplace. But
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So I was just saying that the other thing which we have done is that, basically when I started this company, one of the things I kept hearing again and again from investors is that all big companies in the social networking space began with a very, very small niche. And they did something really epic in that particular niche before moving to a more universal category of audiences. So the niche which we have chosen to start with is in the niche of sports. So we will be selling only officially licensed sports NFTs in It's Mine.
Okay. Okay, all right, okay. So, how do you like go about deciding which are the, which sports are you targeting, or which perhaps teams are you targeting? Like, how do you go about deciding that? Is there an internal mechanism that you have in place, or do you take like public opinion? How do you go about doing that?
So the idea is that, Tarisha, once we have some kind of scale in terms of our community participation and engagement, the idea is to have this decision making done by a DAO type mechanism. But right now, it's a centralized mechanism wherein what we are doing is that the team, based on our own contacts in
Hmm.
the sports industry in Asia and abroad, we are just kind of
Right.
trying to leverage our contacts to get partnerships with sports brands, teams, athletes, and so on. And I think some of the notable partnerships we have currently, there are like two or three of
Hmm.
them. One is with a company called Swiss Timing, which basically
Right.
owns Swatch Group, which then in turn owns
Right.
Omega watches, Rado, and like a bunch of
Yeah.
famous Swiss watch brands. So they are our first partner in the sports category because they are an official sponsor of the Olympics. The second partner
Okay.
we have gotten on board is Anta, ANTA. So
Okay.
Anta jo hai, they actually own a bunch of sports brands globally, and some of the major sports brands they own are there are two brands actually. One is called Fila, FILA.
Right.
So
Yeah.
आपने
Everybody's
शायद
heard of that. Yeah.
exactly. So Fila is quite well known, and the second well known brand which they own is called Wilson. Wilson is
Okay.
very big in the world of tennis. So if you ever played tennis, like there's a chance that the rackets or the balls were made by Wilson, if not both. So
Okay. Wow,
so
that's
and
interesting.
yeah, so
That's
Anta is our second.
quite a few big names, yeah. Like more power to you guys. You just started off, and you really closed some big names.
Yeah, thank you. So I think in this kind of a field, like that is basically how the thing should get built, right? Because if we don't have good quality supply on the NFT side,
Hmm.
it'll be very hard to
Yeah.
get good quality demand as well. And then if we don't have
Okay.
the balance of the two, then the platform won't ever scale.
Right. So, what is the kind of traction that you have seen so far? How many collections have you pushed out till now?
So Trisha, its mine is not yet launched. We are currently in the beta testing phase. All of these partnerships who we
Okay.
have gotten on board, right? These partnerships
Right.
are basically there that once our platform goes live, their NFTs
Hmm.
will be the ones which are the first ones to be listed. But I think even in the pre-launch traction, we have been building up a wait list of people
Right.
who have expressed an interest to become users of It's Mine. And currently that
Okay.
wait list is about 75,000 people. So I think
Wow.
it's yeah. So I mean, I don't foresee any challenge in getting the initial set of users, but I think to
Right.
be able to kind of keep those people engaged and hooked to come back time
Hmm.
and again, that will be the real challenge.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, the stickiness would ultimately come down to, the user interface and such and what kind of collections you're pushing out. But with these kind of partnerships already under your belt, I think you wouldn't have any trouble. I was actually under the impression that, you guys are live because recently with 83, you guys have partnered with the movie, right? And you pushed out the NFTs as well for this. Would you like to tell us a little more about that collaboration? Because that's like super exciting.
Yeah. So yeah, glad you asked that. Over here, the thing is that our company is NFT Labs, right? And the idea is to have multiple products which deal with
Right.
NFTs. It's Mine is
Hmm.
our core product, but just last month, I think around the 25th of December, we launched one
Hmm.
more product called Social Swag NFTs.
Okay.
So that Social Swag NFTs is a joint venture between our company NFT Labs and a company called
Hmm.
Social Swag Technologies, which is actually owned by your Bollywood stars Akshay Kumar and Rana Daggubati.
Okay.
So
Wow.
it's a partnership between their company and ours. And as a joint venture, we have basically built Social Swag NFTs, which is India's which is currently India's largest marketplace for officially licensed Bollywood NFTs. And
Okay.
to kind
So
of
these are two
commemorate.
separate verticals. Like, there is the social swag NFTs and then there is It's Mine NFTs. The niches are different, correct?
Exactly. So It's Mine is a
Okay.
social platform. It is completely sports focused. Social Swag
Right.
is on the other
Hmm.
hand Asian entertainment focused, and it is not anything to do with sports.
Okay. All right. But you got like the movie which deals with like the greatest cricketing moment in the scene. So I just assume that that will be a part of its mine as well. But no, more props to you guys. Like the way with the speed at which you guys are moving and the kind of partnerships that you guys have closed. I do feel that you are going to be flag bearers here, at least in this niche space of NFTs. So tell me a little now. Let's go on from what you're doing to the general perception around NFTs. Like people have a certain perception in that obviously people can say that okay, the kind of value ascribed to an NFT is basically something that people have a hard time wrapping their head around. But ultimately then an argument can be made that beauty lies kind of in the eyes of the beholder. Well, what are your thoughts around this kind of perception that people hold, which is sort of derogatory towards NFTs?
So I think such actually there are two things that I think about this, right? One is that until I think about Jan or Feb last year, I was in the other camp of people who
Right.
looked down upon NFTs.
NFTs.
I had kind of deemed it the fool's errand that people are just trying to just extort money from each other, and the game will at some point burst, and then the whole bubble will get exposed. That was my thought process. But I think the way that I have now completely shifted my conviction to the other extreme is that I actually had taken a decision at the point that before I dismiss this as a bubble, I should at least know that exactly what are the reasons why I'm going to dismiss it. I did not want to be the one who kind of just says something negative because of the herd mentality. Ki baki log bol rahe kharab, to ye bhi bakwas hai kind of thing. So I thought, I'll do my own research around it, and if I am convinced that it is absolute shit, then I'll just stick with that thesis, right? Then I went down this whole rabbit hole around studying what an NFT is, what is the technology behind it, what is the utility, why some people have really done well, why CryptoPunks was the success it was, why people like Gary Vee are promoting NFTs, why is LeBron James selling an NFT for $300,000. I actually did a lot of research on a lot of these things. And I think the more and more I did this research, the more I spoke to people who are from this industry. I think bit by bit, the whole resistance towards this being a genuine business opportunity just melted away. And then I think now I'm on the other extreme of things, wherein I believe that the NFT technology is here to stay forever. Now, obviously, there are certain NFT projects, certain NFT works of art, which may depreciate in value quite significantly. But I think that kind of a cleansing process must happen in every new technology, right?
Yeah, there is always correction, right? There is always correction. And yeah. And moreover, like with art, just so if you're thinking associating NFTs with any kind of a creative expression, and you think of it, as art or any sort of a creative, unique expression that you're putting out, then again, fluctuation in their ascribed value is only natural, right? There'll be ups and there'll be downs.
Exactly. And plus, when you also draw this parallel to art, right? If you actually dig deep, right, there are maybe double-digit number of artists globally who have some kind of recognition and who have some value on their works. Maybe number, I think last I checked was between 70 and 90. So these are really the artists. Inka art is like selling at auctions. Art galleries are after them to get commissions and so on. But then if you compare this number, there are probably over 100,000 artists in total who also create something similar in terms of works of art. But then obviously a very small fraction of them becomes the runaway success that it does. And I think, but just because that is the case, we don't dismiss art as being a bubble, right? It is that the real talent always gets due share of reward, either now or at some point in the future. So I think
due time, in duly exactly. The value would be very there for apparent for everybody to see. Now, when we talk about the value aspect, the other aspect obviously is the utility aspect. So there are a lot of now newer use cases that people are driving to again NFTs. What is your take on that? Twitter came up with this idea that they'll do profile verification via NFTs, that blue tick. So have you come across any sort of an interesting use case, or how do you think this space is going to evolve?
Yes, that's a great question. I think utility is definitely one way that we can make the value around the art a bit more tangible. So, for example, when we launched these 83 movie NFTs, one of the things we did was that we launched multiple collections, but the next collection which we are launching now is actually NFTs which have very direct utility. And the direct utility is that you get to own a piece of physical asset along with the digital copy. So in the case of
Wow.
83, what we are giving people is that if you buy that scene of Ranveer Singh hitting the last boundary, you actually get a autographed copy of the moose bat that was used in 83. And that bat
Oh,
gets
so the original bat they will be able to own.
exactly we send you
Wow.
the bat by courier, and the bat is actually packaged in a museum style box. So it becomes
Wow.
it's like actually buying a piece of cricket memorabilia in two formats at the
Yeah.
same time. One is the physical and one is the NFT version of it. So I think asset backing is definitely one good utility which we think there is a lot of good response for. But apart from this, there are also some other interesting utility use cases which I have recently come across. For example, we are launching one more collection in collaboration with an artist who has worked with Marvel Studios for a very long time. And he has this very interesting concept that the NFTs which he sells, right? The proceeds from those NFTs, he does not want any money from these. What he wants to do, however, is that he wants to use the NFT proceeds to set up a DAO which will compensate victims of crypto scams.
Okay. Wow. How would you
So
go about doing that? Like, how would you identify and what would the loop look like here?
So actually, that is something that we are currently still finalizing because he's an artist, right? He has very extreme demands of what he wants as the final outcome. Now it is my job to kind of put together all the steps in between to help him get to the final outcome in a practical fashion. So honestly, I think it's a bit too early. I don't have the right answer for this exactly. How will this all work out?
Right.
But the idea is there, right? And I think similar
Yeah.
to how this guy has this idea, there are a lot of NFT projects who also have some very interesting utilities, and I think utility guys will definitely fare better over the midterm or even the short term as compared to the non-utility pure artwork based NFTs.
Right. I think that's a very natural way that the space is going to evolve, that there will be utilities associated with NFTs and people would, as you said, people will come around and be able to see the value that NFTs really bring to the table in due time. Like this is just a little like early crypto days, right? Everybody used
Correct.
to kind of question the utility or, even the value being ascribed to say like any cryptocurrency or crypto token. But then people came around, they realize what the use cases are. So I do believe that, it's going to be a gradual progression for NFTs as well in that space. So now moving on from NFTs, let's talk a little about the other trending, things in the space. There is a lot of noise of late about the metaverse and, how Facebook also kind of did, rejigging of their brand name and now they're called Meta. What are your thoughts on the metaverse and how do you see this space evolving, and are you as a company going to be doing something in the metaverse space anytime soon, because NFTs and metaverse, they're kind of inherently a little related?
Correct. And I think actually the whole interlink between NFTs and metaverse is actually what dragged me into NFTs for a major part. So had it probably been just NFTs by itself, probably NFT Labs would have been something else. But the idea behind starting NFT Labs was to kind of become the one of the initial players to set up the infrastructure for upcoming metaverses. And currently, the way we are doing this is by building communities around NFTs. But then, obviously, the plans are more metaverse specific. And I think a couple of things, right? With the way I see this linkage happening, is that in the case of our own partners, for example, when you take the brand like Fila or their parent company Anta. So Fila at this juncture, right, as a brand has two options. They can go down the NFT route and simply put out the collection on OpenSea, and it will still sell out because of the brand power of the Fila name itself. But what we are doing is that we are educating all of these brands to follow the path of an Adidas or of a Nike, wherein we tell them that it is actually better for you to have a metaverse presence and have NFTs become a byproduct of that presence itself. So don't keep NFTs as the end goal, but rather keep metaverse presence and early metaverse presence as the goal, and then use NFTs as a way to get to the goal. So one example in which we are making this work right now is that in the case of Fila, we are not actually directly creating NFTs of Fila and putting them on any marketplace anywhere. What we are doing on the other hand is that we are creating the Fila Metaverse store. So it is the Fila Metaverse Experience Center, FEC.
Okay.
So ये जो experience center है ना, यहाँ पे people can go and you don't even require VR headset to access it because we are building this on Somnium Space, which is compatible with your mobile, laptop, and all devices. So the idea is that you can go to this metaverse location and you can actually interact with a couple of products that Fila has. So for example, there are flagship shoes but if you want to buy a shoe, the idea is that we don't sell you the shoe in the metaverse or we don't take you to an e-commerce page. Rather, what we do is that we sell you a blank shoe. It's like so if you take a Fila model, for example, one of the models is called KT57. So that KT57 shoe comes with like a variety of designs, patterns, and so on. But what we are doing is that we are selling the very stripped down 3D version of the KT57 shoe by itself. And then we're telling people that, hey, now once you own the shoe as an NFT, you can further customize this shoe's patterns, colors, skins, graphics using additional NFTs. And, basically those who are sneakerheads will want to have the biggest set of accessories around their shoe so that shoe becomes that much more valuable when they want to either do a resale or use it in any metaverse applications. But then what we are doing is that as a brand, a company like Fila, they don't see much sense putting all of this time and effort and then making some NFT sales happen through metaverse and getting a few $1,000s out of it. Because even if we get them a few $1 million, that basically is a dent in the overall top line of the company. So the whole idea over here is to take it one step further. So what we are doing for these guys is that we are building a metaverse store first. Then we are selling NFTs in that metaverse store. And then we are making those NFTs visible in video games as skins and so on. So for example, very recently, this fashion brand Balenciaga, they made a deal with Fortnite, wherein one of the Fortnite characters is a pug dog. And Balenciaga is actually selling hoodies for the dog. And these
yes, I read about this.
Yeah, exactly. So we are in talks with Epic Games and some companies to actually sell such accessories for some of our partner brands in their games and so on. So we are getting the brands on board for 3 parts of the journey. One part is NFT, one part is metaverse, and the last and final part is gaming.
Wow. Okay. There's like, the entire thing is coming a full circle. There is actually like, you're not just getting an NFT, and not only are you able to like get a branded NFT, you are able to customize it and perhaps further split it into more NFTs. And then there is actually a use case in the metaverse as well, apart from experiencing it in the metaverse. So this is very exciting. But, again, this is something that, as you said, this is like a niche and a lot of people understand it. And a lot of people, I think, gamers and people who are already, kind of in the space, they do understand the craze around it. How would you go about explaining this perhaps to somebody, who's maybe say like our parents who perhaps don't really, understand this so thoroughly? Like, what would be your take? And this I'm asking because just out of pure curiosity, because I always like knowing how people, kind of dismantle their macro thoughts or their vision into something that is very, very simple.
So early on, I think when I was like in, I don't know which standard, but sometime in school, right? After my, sometime in my secondary school, Facebook had just got an initial traction. And I had signed up for a Facebook account at the time. And I showed it to somebody in the family. I don't remember my mom or dad who saw it, but I showed it to them. He like, this is like a cool new thing. Because basically at that time, people had a lot of fear. If you're using internet, like, who are you interacting with and whatnot. And I think that's still there now. But at that point, it was a more extreme kind of a thing. So they used to keep a tab in what is being watched and so on. So then Facebook was one of those sites which I was using quite actively. And the question came, what is the point of using this? And I was like, nothing, like, I can just inform my friends if I'm not coming to school today, I can post my lunch ke liye kya khaya, dinner ke liye kya khaya, and like whatnot. And this simple answer to them sounded very, very stupid and very ridiculous. That why would somebody care? What are you doing for your lunch and dinner? Even if they're your friends. And photo posting iska kya fayda hai? And kind of a thing. But then, I think in that moment of time, right, neither me nor them could have imagined that this phenomenon would go so out of hand and it would blow up to the extent which it has. And I think, this happens with every major technological leap. So I think if you going back in history, There are companies like AT&T in the US, which thought that the cell phone itself is a fad. It will never become a
Right.
feasible
Yeah.
technology, and they lost out on millions because of this. There are companies who
Right.
thought internet itself is a fad, which will die
Yeah.
out after a few months. But now look at where internet is, and then Facebook a fad happened. Now Facebook is the new standard, and I think we are at that very critical turning point for NFTs as well. Currently, the perception is that people are just buying and trading JPEGs. It's a very stupid activity. But I think this stupid activity / fad will become so mainstream at such a big scale so fast that it'll all seem like it happened in the blink of an eye. So
Yeah.
whenever somebody in my circle questions this, I'm just like, just look at some historical patterns, like look at what has always happened with disruptive technologies. And I think the
Right.
same exact signals are also visible for NFTs right now.
Right. So I think it is the what you've kind of put it very beautifully, that any kind of a technological disruption, it comes with it faces a lot of resistance, right? And then before you know it, it has kind of taken over all aspects of your life.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And
Okay.
some of
So
them
now, yeah.
catch on very, very rapidly. Some of them take time. But I think now, because of the
Yeah.
kind of speed and connectivity which is there now, I think now almost nothing takes too much time. Everything is quite fast.
Yes, that is absolutely true. I think, and in any which way in crypto and blockchain, because everything is open, right? So it's all incremental. Nobody is starting from scratch. And that is why the speed at which things happen here is absolutely manic to somebody who's probably not used to this space. Things move really fast here just because it's all open. But then, it's all about collective intelligence, and we kind of moving forward in this space, at this space, and we are all kind of growing together. And I think that is like the beauty of blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this whole transparency, incremental innovation, and the fact that it's a 24/7 market. Somebody's always working on something, and they always make it very public what they're working on, which in return then gets more ideas on board and stuff. I think this is the best way to innovate. I think we are very fortunate that you and I are currently still at what we can call the early stages of blockchain.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we are very blessed that, we are so early and we are telling everybody to join this, new so-called, it almost seems like a cult with the way that, the Web3 entrepreneurs encourage other people to come in, into this space. But it is a very dynamic and interesting space. Like if you're somebody who wants to learn and grow tremendously, then there is no better place than Web3 to do that.
Absolutely. And then, now coming from a Web2 kind of startup background, even I am sometimes shocked. What is the pace of things at which what is the pace at which things are moving in NFT Labs? For the kind of milestone roadmaps and stuff which we had in like our Web2 days, these things are just very, very accelerated. But I think that is the real power, because the speed of progress is so fast that if you don't kind of keep running with it, then you just fall behind very, very fast.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I completely agree. You have to push yourself to stay up with the trends. Basically, it's not because there is too much happening. It's 24/7. It's there is some development happening somewhere in some part of the world, and that is bound to surprise you. So, enough again about Web3 now, moving perhaps to content and community. So, this space is what it is because of the community that, we kind of end up creating around our products and platforms. So what are or who are the thought leaders or influencers that, you swear by, or what are your go-to places where you, perhaps glean all this information from?
So people have created this whole category of hustle porn, food porn, and stuff. So I think for me that category is Gary V porn. Like I'm a big follower of Gary V, and I think he's the one person to whom I think maximum of my social media exposure happens and comes from. So Gary V basically has been talking about Web3 NFTs and stuff since a while. And I basically am one of those guys who's watched every piece of content that he's put out around this, not just once but multiple times, and I continue doing it on a daily basis. So I think the straightforward answer is that Gary Vee is definitely number one. But then also certain institutions, for example, Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z, they have a very good blog, and I try to keep up with that as well. So yeah, I think these two are the main sources as such.
All right, okay. So again, this is something that I kind of, ask in the end to whoever is on, coming on the podcast. And we are kind of now running a little out of time. So I would definitely come to the same question. If somebody, from Web2 is, or from somebody from the outside is peering into this Web3 space, how would you, perhaps convince them, or what would be your two suggestions for them to perhaps, start living on blockchain?
Two suggestions. I think the first one would be simply that don't waste, especially don't go into the situation of paralysis by analysis. I have
Hmm.
I have come very close to that myself, but luckily I was
Hmm.
able to actually like dive in before before the whole analysis kind of killed the dream. So I think that is the main thing. I wish that and this applies to I think all startups as such, right? If you waste too
Yeah.
much time in thinking and just planning, ye karenge, wo karenge, you don't actually do much in that time. And I think
Yeah.
the amount of learning and amount of learning you can get from doing right, it will enable you to
Hmm.
pivot also rapidly if something goes wrong. Because eventually, as everybody knows, all startup plans go to shit, right? Immediately. Like whatever,
Right.
when you start doing business, things just change very dynamically. So no, so it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter what you have planned anyways. So why to waste time in
Hmm.
planning so much? That would be the first advice. And the second advice would be that there's no, matlab, it's not too early or too late. I think we are in an industry where, because India's size is kind of a billion people. There are like 20 million crypto traders. There will for a long time we will keep telling people that we are early, but those who are
Hmm.
already in the game, they will kind of feel कि अभी तो we have reached a plateau. It's late. ये वो. I think that there will never come the right time. Like bear market, bull market, and all of these things should be kind of kept aside. And if somebody really wants to enter, na, they should just do it. मतलब एक तो पहले इतना ज़्यादा सोचो मत. And secondly,
Hmm.
don't try to time the market, because the market is like,
Yeah.
ultimately it's very very unpredictable. Like even though you and I are, you are like a much more veteran than me, but मतलब it's कुछ we can't predict anything which is like of
Nobody can predict anything,
significance.
यार.
Exactly.
Veteran, no veteran. I don't believe कि anybody can be a veteran in this space. क्योंकि इतना तो कुछ होता रहता है. Every day I'm learning something new. I feel like I'm entering this space every day when I learn, different things, because I don't really trust people who call themselves blockchain experts. Because how can you be an expert in a space which is still so evolving? So, I think, what you're saying is absolutely right. Nobody should try to time the market. I think that goes for any kind of market, let's say, really honestly. It's not just a crypto market, which is like, okay, very volatile, but otherwise also with any market, I think nobody should try to time the market. And, analysis paralysis is something that people should not get into. I think, there is a very wrong notion that in the Web3 space, only people who are like very tech savvy or engineers can get in. And this is something I try to dispel in every, place whenever I go and speak, that, we need people from all skill sets, and there is space for everybody. It's just that, you don't have to start getting intimidated. You need to have that confidence and just take the leap of faith, because it will be like a journey like no other that you've taken or undertaken in your life so far.
Exactly. So, absolutely, I agree with you. Could not say it better.
So, Athar, before we wrap this up, any last thoughts for our listeners?
Thoughts, matlab, that's no, not thoughts as such, but I think there are a few patterns which are very obvious when it comes to crypto. Like it's one of those kind of markets. Matlab, like, if you go
Mm-hmm.
back in time, even more recently, na, when Uber was new, for example,
Right.
so many people
Yeah.
thought that now Uber will get banned any day. And
Mm.
Uber did get banned in a lot of markets, but then they fought their way back, and now Uber is a standard in commuting, and
Right.
now it's too late to say that they will fail. Matlab, it's kind of too big to fail kind of a point. I think
Right.
crypto has already reached that point, and NFTs also may have reached. I mean, I'm not an expert by any means, but matlab, these things are all here to stay. But either we can choose to just ignore them and be indifferent and miss out on any opportunity, or we can just kind of submit and join the revolution. And I think joining the cult, so to say, is much more very beneficial to everybody than just staying on the sidelines and complaining.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think, that is a wonderful way to sort of close this conversation. Thank you so much, Athar, for taking out the time to speak to us and, to let us know and deep dive a little more about NFTs and their use cases. I'm sure that this is something that our listeners will love. Thank you so much for taking out the time.
And thank you for having me, Tarsha. Thank you so much. Great speaking with you.